Something weird is happening. I've taken my iPad off flight mode to connect to the internet and post this. I've tried checking the news, but it seems different. I should be in Morocco by now. Actually, more than that, I think I should have checked into my hotel and be relaxing by the pool already. My watch has stopped working, so I could be wrong, but we've been flying for so long. To explain, I'm flying to Morocco for a holiday. My boyfriend, Lars, suggested we get some proper sun, and he'd seen a cheap deal online with some new airline where we could fly direct from Stockholm. We left our hometown of Umia and spent the night before the flight with my sister and her family in their cramped city center apartment. That should mean last night, but I feel like it was so long ago. We had an early flight, so it was still dark when we left for the airport. We had a light breakfast at the airport, but neither of us ate much. We were planning to continue sleeping on the flight to make up for the lack of sleep the night before. Everything went fine with check-in and boarding. It was busy, but everyone looked sleepy like us, just eager to get on the flight and get to some much-needed sunshine. It's been so cold in Sweden recently. Everyone just looked gray and worn down from what I can remember, although I wasn't studying them in my sleepy state. The plane is massive. I'm sorry, I'm not a plane person, so I don't know what type it is. I have an uncle who's a geek for this stuff and could tell you the difference between an A something and an Airbus something. I don't listen, as you can tell. I just zone out because I don't care. All I know is that it's much bigger than the little planes I use to fly to nearby European countries. This plane has 2 aisles. That's how big it is. I'm used to the little planes with 3 seats on one side, an aisle, then 3 seats on the other side. It's pretty amazing to see one with an extra row of seats in the middle. Lars and I are in the middle row, so we can't see out of the windows at all. If I'd been by a window, maybe I'd have seen something, some change in the landscape, and could explain what's going on. I don't know how long we've been flying. The pilot hasn't made any announcements in ages. I read for maybe 30 minutes to relax before sleeping, while Lars just went straight to sleep. I feel like I slept for hours, but it's impossible to say. It was when I woke up and went to check the time that I saw my watch had stopped working. Lars woke up at pretty much exactly the same time as me and asked if we were nearly there yet, as if I'm flying this thing. I sat up and looked around, and that's when I noticed everyone seemed to be doing the same as us, waking up, looking around and remembering that they were on a plane, looking at their watches and finding them broken. That was when I started feeling nervous. Why is every watch broken? I spoke to the young family behind us. They've stopped at different times. I don't know if that's comforting or not, but either way, the mood on board began changing and people were looking scared. Nothing seemed obviously wrong. We were still flying, no turbulence. It's just that everyone had gone to sleep and woken up with a broken watch. I realize there are much more sinister things that can happen on a flight, but this is just weird. Shortly after we'd all woken up, the flight attendants came past with a trolley of drinks, but they just ignored everyone. They called out offering drinks as they went, and a few people tried to ask them the time and where we are on the journey, but they just brushed everyone off, saying they'd check and kept smiling at us. I tried to put it to the back of my mind. Other passengers shook their heads or shrugged and began reading books and magazines. Bit of a weird thing, but no big deal. Don't they say that everything, no matter how improbable, can happen once just by pure coincidence? I had a selection of silly gossip magazines to keep me going for the journey. I read them 1, then 2, then 3. I went back and read some of the articles I'd skipped over, seeing as I'm stuck on a plane, I may as well read about some model I've never heard of and her latest divorce, anything to pass the time. By the time I'd read all my magazines and had already had that first sleep when we got on, I was thinking we had to be nearly there. But nothing was happening. No announcements, no seatbelt signs to get us ready for landing. We just kept going. I borrowed a book from Lars that he was bringing to read by the pool. I'm not that interested in crime dramas, but I was so bored I would read anything. I kept reading and reading. I kept seeing people glance up nervously and look around for the stewards, but getting nothing. Everyone seems a bit on edge. And we just kept flying. No announcements, no turbulence. just endless flying. The reason I've started writing this is that things have started to change again. Specifically, the light has changed. We left in the morning and are flying south in a journey that should only take a little over 5 hours. But about 10 minutes ago, guessing, the sun set. I know now that means we've been flying for much longer than we should. I must have slept for hours. The father of the family behind me is up, banging on the door to the cockpit. He's screaming at them to tell us what's going on. No one is stopping him. The flight attendants are just looking neutral, like nothing unusual is happening. Some passengers are looking the same, like they've zoned out. Others are crying. I'm not sure what to do. There's nothing I can do. We just keep flying. It's getting darker, but it's not just night sky darkness. It's like there are thick black clouds outside the windows on each side, blotting out any light from the sun or moon, whatever time it is. It's like when a storm is coming and everything gets dark and quiet. People are just sitting in their seats staring forward like they're having an out-of-body experience. I guess it could be a coping mechanism, but so many are doing it. Even Lars has lost his energy and is just sitting next to me looking like he's resigned himself to some awful fate. He's just staring at the tray table. I just fell asleep again. I didn't even feel tired. I was awake 1 minute and the next I was snapping awake, and it is even darker now. The clouds outside are darker, less like storm clouds, more like smoke clouds. I remember when there was a fire at a factory on the outskirts of town once, and everyone in my office block watched from the windows as the black smoke billowed up on the horizon. That's what it looks like outside the windows now. I've tried looking online to see if there's any news, but when I go to news sites, it's all scrambled. Instead of familiar words, I can just see. I tried to check Facebook, but it seems to be showing only old posts, like silly photo albums from parties at school and the first year of university are all showing as just posted. More people are falling asleep again. And I've just noticed something else. There are less people here. There are a few empty seats dotted throughout the plane that I'm sure were filled earlier. They can't all be in the bathroom. I can't see any stewards either. The man from the seat behind me isn't there, but he isn't still banging on the door to the cockpit. I guess he could have been escorted somewhere, like the back of the plane, to calm down. I'm trying to come up with rational explanations, but I'm so scared now. Shit! The pilot has started making an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Apologies for the delay to your flight caused by unexpected pit stops. What is he talking about? We have not stopped once. I've just looked around to see if anyone else is looking confused, but everyone is either asleep or just there, like they're here physically, but they're dead-eyed and silent, like dolls. We are now approaching your final stop and hope that you enjoy your stay. Good luck, Josephine. What? I just turned to Lars to ask him if he heard that too. The pilot just fucking spoke to me. But he's different. I don't know what it is. He was already quiet like the others, but I've just noticed something that I hadn't spotted before. Oh God, now I've just realized what has seemed off about the other passengers. Something subtle has been changing in them, but I don't know their faces so well, so I didn't see it until it started to happen to Lars. His face, it's becoming less him, and I don't know. It's like his features are generic. I don't know. Everyone looks really similar, like all the unique things about Lars have been dialed down. That bump on his nose from rugby is less pronounced, his freckles are gone, even his hair looks tidier. And that spark in his eyes, it's gone, like a dummy. I tried shaking him, but he just looks back vacantly, like a stranger on some strong sedatives. The plane is silent. I've stopped shaking Lars because even the sounds I'm making trying to quietly reason with him and make him speak to me are just making the plane seem even quieter. Like being a loud person in church, I just feel such dread, and I don't want to draw any attention to myself. I'm the only one reacting or moving. I feel like I'm alone. There are more empty seats now. I don't even see people getting up from their seats. Where are they going? Guys, it's been so long up here. We're still flying. No signs of starting to descend, no let up from the blackness outside, just a silent plane going around the dark skies. I don't know how long we've been going. I have no way of telling anymore. If you can read this, please check the news. Please see if you can see any stories about a flight that hasn't arrived, due into Marrakesh on the 16th of March 2012, which must be at least 2 days ago by this point, but who knows anymore? I'm starting to feel sleepy again. Hopefully, when I wake up, we'll have landed. Did you know that there were 86 commercial plane accidents last year? That's what I read in the airport lobby before I boarded my plane. Needless to say, it made me even more nervous. It was my first time flying, and reading about airplane crashes wasn't helping. I stopped for a slight moment before stepping into the plane with a shaky leg. The flight attendant flashed me a blinding white smile and asked for my plane ticket. I gave it to her with sweaty hands. She took a look at it and pointed me inside the cabin. My nerves were filling my legs with jittery energy, and the cramped cabin did not help that. I found my seat, and thankfully it was a window seat. I wiped the sweat off my forehead and looked around to make sure no one saw me. I didn't want anyone to laugh at me. I hurriedly sat down on my seat and took deep breaths. My chest rose and fell, but my heart continued beating relentlessly in my chest, and the sweat wouldn't stop forming on my forehead. The hum of the plane engines filled the atmosphere a couple of minutes later, and a lump formed in my throat as the plane accelerated. I could feel the pressure on my chest as the plane moved faster and faster. Just before the plane started to ascend, the front part of the plane went up and then fell again, causing a loud thud. I yelped as I heard the thud. A child behind me started to laugh before his mother shushed him. My face flushed red with embarrassment, and I shut my eyes tightly. I sensed the plane going higher and higher as the pressure on my chest started to increase. My chest tightened, and I was afraid the pressure was going to crush me. Nothing like that happened, though, and the plane stopped ascending after a couple of minutes and just started to fly forward. I unbuckled my seatbelt with shaky hands as my adrenaline rush wore off. The same flight attendant from earlier offered me a bottle and asked me if I was okay. I mumbled a no and quickly took the bottle. I stared at the white clouds from the window as the plane continued to soar in the air. Soon that got boring, and I was now more bored than nervous. Flying isn't so bad after all, I told myself as I started to look for a movie to watch on the screen in front of me. Instead, I opted out for some games and just played those instead on the remote. They weren't exactly exciting games, but they kept me entertained for the next 30 minutes. Soon enough, the lights in the cabin were turned off. Only dim blue lighting filled the cabin. Most people tried to go to sleep in the cramped seats. I decided to do the same as I wanted to just pass time. That was the worst decision I made. When I was just on the edge of sleep, I started to hear faint whispers in the cabin. My half-asleep mind didn't register them, and I fell asleep. That's the last thing I remember before I woke up. I woke up naturally a couple of hours later. I rubbed my tired eyes before looking around the cabin. It was completely empty. I blinked and rubbed my eyes again and looked around for anyone. The cabin was still dimly lit with the blue lights, and it was completely empty, like everyone had just vanished. A pit formed in my stomach, and my mouth suddenly went dry. I got out of my seat and started walking down the aisle, moving my head side to side furiously to find someone. My fears were confirmed, and there was no one in the cabin. I moved to the next area via the curtains, and once again, the plane was empty. I checked the toilets as well, and there was no one there. Maybe I slept through the landing, I thought, as my mind tried to rationalize the situation. It's ironic how in the most stressful situations, our first priority is to rationalize the situation, to find an explanation. I went to a window and pulled up the plastic window cover,
My heart skipped a beat as I saw the dark sky and the faint outlines of wispy clouds. Chills ran up my spine as my observation started to register. I was all alone on a plane 10,000 meters up in the air. I started running quickly to the pilot's cabin. I ran past multiple cabins separated by the curtains and the toilets. I ran and ran, but all I saw on the other side of the separating curtains was another cabin. I was sweating profusely. My heart was a scared rabbit trapped in my chest. No matter how far I ran, no matter how many cabins I crossed, I never reached the pilot's cabin. Every window showed the same dark sky and clouds. Every cabin was lit by the same dark blue lights. Every cabin had the same dark blue carpet. I collapsed in the middle of the aisle as I crossed my 30th seating cabin. I couldn't catch my breath. My clothes were wet with sweat, and the lump in my throat wouldn't go away. I needed to get out of this plane. Suddenly, I heard a low hum, different from the hum of the plane engine. I strained my ears. It held a melody, a rhythm. It sounded serene and sad. I looked around and saw a woman sitting on a seat a couple of rows ahead of me. I could only see the back of her head. I got up and walked towards her, desperate for help. I stopped in my tracks when I saw what she was watching on her screen. It showed me behind her, like there was a camera behind me and it was streaming to her screen. She stopped humming and turned her head around slowly. Her face turned the blood in my veins into ice. Her eyes were bloodshot and her eyelids were missing. Her mouth was curled into a smile that spread from ear to ear. "Is there a problem, sir?" she spoke in her calm voice. I stumbled backwards and nearly fell over before running without looking back. I kept on running and running until I tripped over and crashed under the soft, dark carpet. I looked back and noticed that I had tripped on a bottle, the same one that the flight attendant had given me before I fell asleep. "What does she want from me?" I thought as I slowly got up and looked behind me. For the first time, thankfully, she had not followed me, and I was all alone in the cabin. I looked around and pondered on what I should do. I had no way out. The curtain to the next cabin ahead of me fluttered, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The flight attendant came out from behind the curtain. "Is there a problem, sir?" I stuttered as I slowly backed away. I hit into a solid object. I turned around and came face to face with the same flight attendant again. "Is there a problem, sir?" I looked back, and suddenly all the seats were full. They were all twins of the same flight attendant. "Is there a problem, sir?" Their voices echoed through the whole cabin. Their voices shook me to the very core. I ran to the next cabin quickly and noticed that that cabin was also filled with the flight attendants. I continued running until I found myself facing an exit door. The flight attendants were following me. I could hear the drumming of their footsteps. I quickly opened a heavy door by turning the wheel. I'd rather jump off the plane than face them. The door opened, and I was suddenly sucked into the blackness of the sky. It was cold. The chill creeped into my bones and into my very soul. I continued falling in the dark sky through the clouds. I waited for my horrible death. I waited for the moment I would hit the ground at my terminal velocity and break all my bones in my body. I waited for those short few moments of immense pain. I started to remember what had happened before this predicament, how I had gotten myself into that mess. The memory of me boarding the plane played in my mind. I saw myself about to fall asleep, and then suddenly, it's like I just jumped into that memory, like being sucked into it. I was back in my plane seat. My body was still cold, and I could still feel the wind rustling in my hair as I fell. Slowly, the feelings of me free-falling subsided, and I could feel the cabin again. I was transported back to the time just before I had fallen asleep. Needless to say, I did not fall asleep. A couple of agonizingly fearful hours later, the plane had finally landed, and I was ecstatic to feel the ground again. I had thought up until then that it was just a dream. It was just a nightmare induced by my fear of flying. However, what happened just as I departed from the plane made me doubt that. The same flight attendant was standing at the door wishing us farewell as they departed. When I passed in front of her, she said something that made chills run up my spine to this day. "Is there a problem, sir?" I quickly ran out of the flight and pushed past everyone. I safely got home. I wouldn't be typing the story just because of a scary flight, though. I'm posting the story because I need help. I saw the flight attendant again today. She's right outside my window. I can't escape my room. No matter how many types I pass through the door, it always leads back again to my bedroom. She's been staring at me as I typed this post.